The Spotlight, shining a light on podcasts and videos that have caught our attention.
Hi and welcome to The Spotlight. My name is Jen Spiker and today I'll continue highlighting a video from Creation Ministries International. Many people around the world claim to have seen UFOs or experienced interactions with aliens. Gary Bates is a best-selling author and documentary maker on UFOs and aliens. In this Creation Ministries interview, Gary presents a Christian perspective on something most people only associate with science fiction movies and books. As the conversation continues, Gary suggests what he believes is the only viable option to explain these phenomena.
The Spotlight with Jen Spiker.
After all of these years of investigation, it appears like the government doesn't have an answer. They're not saying this is UFOs. They're not saying this is UAPs now. Right. But what they're not saying what it is. It's just a UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon. Was that right?
Unidentified anomalous
phenomenon. Okay, there we go.
I still think nothing has changed. Even though they're being more candid now than they were in the past, they still don't know what they're looking at. Because at the end of the day, you are going to have to collect a crashed craft. You're going to have alien bodies to try to determine something. And, you know, we can't lasso or get my tractor beam in to haul in one of these UAPs or whatever. And despite the claims of there being crashed craft, there are none. Okay? It's as simple as that. But they do leave marks. They've been known to affect our environment. Okay? Just like the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, lights can go off, strange magnetic forces appear. So they certainly can affect our environment and our realm. And that's why I say there is something serious going on. And, you know, anybody who's seen or experienced these things will tell you that they are real. But how do you investigate something that appears and disappears? And that's the problem the government's going to face. But I suspect we're facing a time, Scott, because I believe, and we'll probably talk about what I've described as the more supernatural aspects of them, but most of the world doesn't recognize the supernatural realm.
Of course, we live in a naturalistic world. All of our science, all of the top universities, we're based off naturalism. So we only investigate the natural world.
Yeah.
And really that's what I was until I had an experience. Mine was an experience of God, not an experience of an alien, an experience at the age of 18. I just believed in the natural world as well. So I know, like, the way we work is on the natural world. So how are you going to get a conclusion about some of these things that seem to defy laws of science, laws of logic, and how are you going to do that from a naturalistic mindset? And I guess that's the problem, right?
Yeah. Well, when we first started investigating this, there was something called the extraterrestrial hypothesis. And that's the view that real aliens are traveling in real physical spacecraft, you know, from a galaxy far, far away. To be honest, after all the years of research, most people don't believe that. There's only a few diehards. The alternative is something called the interdimensional hypothesis.
Can you just tell us first, I really want to hear that interdimensional hypothesis. Why is that hypothesis, the previous one, the extraterrestrial hypothesis, why is that one being put aside now?
Yeah, and that's because of what I said earlier, because of what we do know. If I'm just going to quote some stats for you. All right?
Go on,
so just off here. And I had a whole chapter in my book about this, whether these science fiction ideas can happen. So I want you to imagine the space shuttle and the Saturn V rockets that took man to the moon. Now, prior to the new Falcon heavy rockets that Musk's developing, these are the most powerful vehicles mankind had ever produced. Just the main engines on the space shuttle can produce about 3.3 million kilograms of thrust. Wow. Now, at the best speed we could muster, it would take you 800,000 years to reach the next star to our own sun, Proxima Centauri, which is 4.3 light years away.
It takes you 800,000 years?
Yeah. So think about this. That's within our own galaxy. So when you leave our galaxy, even if you could travel at the speed of light, right, 300,000 kilometers per second, it would take you 2 million years to reach the next galaxy to our own Milky Way. That's Andromeda. And the next galaxy after that is 20 million light years away. right? If you could travel at the speed of light. So even if you could travel double at the speed of light or 10 times the speed of light, the distances are phenomenal. And here's the problem. You know, space is not empty.
Yeah.
There's lots of cosmic dust. So even a grain of dust, if you were traveling at 1/10 of the speed of light, that would be like 10 tons of TNT impacting on the hull of your spaceship.
Gosh.
So we see in Star Trek, they have these deflector arrays or force fields to repel that. But you've got to use the same amount of equally opposing force that you're traveling with to deflect that object. So that's only adding to the impossible energy requirements, you know, for your ship.
And so a lot of people would say, you know, anywhere near the speed of light is impossible for any, you know, it's these particles that have zero weight, like photons or things like this, that are able to travel at or near the speed of light, because as, you know, your mass increases as you go near the speed of light. It's an effect of relativity. So what you're talking about is two and a half million light years, I think it is, to the nearest galaxy.
2 million light years to the next galaxy, yeah, Andromeda. Yeah.
So even if we were to travel at 1/10 of the speed of light, it's 20 million years. Mm-hmm. So the point here is that I think you're making is that if there was extraterrestrial life out there, it couldn't visit us. It doesn't have the time to visit us.
Not in spacecraft.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, where we're going to talk about the interdimensional hypothesis. G-forces is another one you mentioned.
We didn't talk about that. Yeah, go on.
Because acceleration is, you know, when, as I say, on Star Trek, when he says, make it so, and they jump into warp factor 6. I mean, could you imagine the acceleration forces? You'd be splattered, and that's why they invent these things called inertial dampeners to avoid you. But again, it's the stuff of science fiction. Now, it's fun.
Yeah.
I love science fiction, and some science fiction has become possible. Arthur C. Clarke developed, invented the idea of satellites above the Earth to, you know, carry radio waves to, get over the line of sight problem due to the curvature of the Earth. So some of it can be, but not this type of stuff, you know. And again, we've talked about impacts, etc., and radiation, because radiation, even if we're looking at manned missions to Mars, we're talking several years in duration. The effect of weightlessness, the effect of cosmic radiation on the body, etc. Yeah, so and you mentioned about the speed of light. As your mass increases, your mass increases, and Einstein theorized, and there's good experimental evidence to suggest this from what we do know, that as you approach the speed of light, your mass becomes infinite. Mm-hmm. So you've got to use an infinite amount of energy to try to get to the speed of light. What does all that mean? Yeah. Basically, it's impossible.
Yeah, these are not technological barriers. These are laws of physics barriers, exactly. Laws of nature's barriers. So your point here is that the extraterrestrial hypothesis, whilst it was good for a while if we imagined we could overcome some technological barriers, now we've become more sure about maybe the laws of nature. We understand it's impossible. Even if you had technology which we've never even dreamed about, the laws of nature prevent alien species from other galaxies visiting us.
Exactly. So remember, we talked about 100 years ago. In the last 100 years, that's when most of the understanding about the enormous size of our universe has become apparent.
True.
So the extraterrestrial hypothesis was probably more prevalent when we didn't realize how far these distant star systems are. Now that we know how far they are, yes, it's impossible. And this is just not a Christian saying, well, he's a debunker. Basically, scientists and physicists would agree with this, that if we are being visited, we're clearly not being visited by aliens that are living millions of light years away.
And I was just thinking as you were saying that, the last 100 years is as we've gained our knowledge about relativity. It was the early 20th century that Einstein came up with special and then general relativity, 1905, 1915. Yeah. So that's very interesting that matches. So what we're coming to is now it's not an extraterrestrial hypothesis. That's not you as a Christian, Gary, saying it's not extraterrestrials. That is the scientific explanation. That's the government explanation. They're coming up, and now it's the interdimensional hypothesis.
Yeah, well, we talked about if they don't believe in the supernatural, and naturalism is really, their worldview. How are they interpreting it? They're going to say, well, it must be coming to us. It can't be supernatural. It's got to be coming to us from another realm or dimension. Hence the interdimensional hypothesis. And again, the reason I'm saying that is because it's actually what the evidence demands. When you see something just appear and disappear. And I say sometimes these craft merge into each other at incredible speeds and become one object and then go off in another direction. And when we say we're seeing these are just not eyewitnesses. They've been tracked on radar doing these things. This is what I mean by military pilots and Air Force officers. And then, of course, we'll talk about people that are having experiences, what we call abductions. Well, how are the aliens suddenly appearing in the room and disappearing, alleged aliens, etc.? So the interdimensional hypothesis, even in the years I've been researching this, has been a change from the ETH to the IDH, the interdimensional hypothesis. Okay, that's now really the most popular views. And what plays into that from what I would call a pseudo-scientific aspect is the ideas of multiverse and string theory, and there might be different levels to our existence or different levels in the universe. And unprovable. So what's happening now, they're resorting to unknowns to explain unknowns.
Yeah, interesting. So we've said these things, and I just want to establish with you that, or just confirm again that you're saying we have actually seen this happening on radar. The US military have seen this on radar, have seen things that can only be explained by something that's supernatural in nature, things that defy naturalistic explanation. They've seen it on actual radar.
Yeah. They've released footage. That was the shocking thing. When they've always had plausible deniability, in the last couple of years, they've released footage of Navy pilots trying to chase these things, and they can't keep up with them. And they've even released the audio, and the pilots just going crazy trying to explain what he's seeing and what's happening. And then recently one actually flew into the water besides a Navy ship and just disappeared, flew in at incredible speed. So again how can you fly a craft and impact into the ocean at some incredible speed without, smashing your craft to bits? So you can understand from their naturalistic worldview, this is very, very puzzling.
Yep.
But I honestly believe, Scott, as Christians, I really do think this is one area where we have an advantage and can explain the answer, because the Bible's always talked about there being another realm or dimension, and they're looking at the evidence of what they call UAPs, and they're coming to a conclusion it's coming from another realm or dimension.
This is The Spotlight, and we've been hearing from Gary Bates with part of a long-form interview produced by Creation Ministries International, exploring the mysterious world of UFOs and aliens. I'm Jen Spiker, and next time on The Spotlight, we'll hear more from Gary on how the Bible speaks into this mysterious topic. If you can't wait and want to watch the interview in full, you can do that right now in the Free Vision app. Just tap the Watch tab and scroll to the Creation Ministries International channel for this and other fascinating interviews.
For more great podcasts and videos like the one featured today, check out vision.org.au or the Free Vision app.